You're either on the bus or you're off the bus.
Welcome aboard. It is episode 19 of Ridin the Bus, the official Iowa Wild podcast coming your way, presented by Explore Minnesota. I'm Ben Gislason, he's Joey Goldstein, and we are into the throes of the offseason now. June is here. My golf game is faltering in a big way, as it always does this time of year. Hot start in May.
Yeah, you warned,
feeling good.
You warned us that this is going to happen.
It's happening.
I start great,
yeah,
and
it's
then
happening.
Around June, July, it gets really bad, and then you stop playing for the year.
Usually there's a really big gap between July and August.
Yeah.
And then I'll try it on, like, September comes around right before the season starts. I'm like, I'm going to get a few more rounds in. Those go usually really well and stops me from just quitting altogether.
Tough.
Gets me excited for May again. After the season. So, yes, it's going exactly according to plan.
Well, the beard game is coming in strong. We're working on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Every broadcaster is taught at the end of a season, you update your demo reel, right? And so I update mine, and there's an on-camera portion of it from our MC22 games, and I watched it. Very happy with it. But I look a little bit like I'm 20 years old when the camera gets on me and the light gets on me. And Liam McHugh did this a few years ago, the fantastic host of what was NBC, now NHL on TNT, where he went beard glasses. I'm a glasses wearer, so I'm going to tinker with it this summer a little bit here and see if I don't find a look that maybe helps add a few more years. It's weird to say out loud,
new
right?
New look, Benny G coming at you
maybe,
this fall.
Maybe.
Be ready.
So this is about a week. So we'll see. We'll see here. It's going to be, if it isn't going to be anything, it'll be tapered. Maybe try to find that Henrik Lundqvist beard look. I don't know if I can get it that thick or not, though. Or Richard Bachman. He's got a great tapered professional beard. So we'll see. I'm not sold on it yet.
We're going to get a whole new personality out of Ben. It's going to be a completely different person. This is going to be great. You guys should be excited.
Yeah. Plenty to be excited about today, though. Our first player guest, I guess Murmis it felt like the end of the season. This is really the off season.
The kickoff to our season 2, you could say, of the podcast, right?
Yeah, you could call it that. Daemon Hunt, an intriguing guest, not only on the ice, but off the ice, too. Really, I would say the most unique personality in the Wild dressing room from last year. He'll be back again next year on the contract he's on. I'm sure he has plans to get some National Hockey League games in, and I would not be surprised if he does. So we're excited to have Daemon introduced to all of you. He's certainly been introduced in a few different fashions throughout the course of the 2022-23 season, but a really fun interview with Daemon coming your way. But first and foremost, as we always do, let's get the podcast off the ground. Let's get the wheels on the bus moving. And what do we got to get to in our intro here today, Joey?
I think the big things, obviously, in the hockey world right now, before we dive into some of the Iowa Wild news, which we want to get to, Stanley Cup just wrapped up. Calder Cup well underway. So let's start with the Stanley Cup since that one's completed now. Vegas has won in convincing fashion, I think, which is just tough after the game. You kind of hear all the stuff that Florida was banged up and going through, hearing, Matthew Tkachuk with a broken sternum, couldn't get out of bed, but still played game 4, and just guys playing. I saw today Brandon Montour was playing with a torn labrum, so he's going to be out for 3 months. You got guys like Aaron Ekblad, who's got a broken foot, and a lot of this stuff happened in their opening series against Boston. They've been just battling through the entire time, so it's really, really impressive. But at some point, you just run out of steam, and I wonder if that layoff got to them a little bit. I think Bobrovsky was just lighting the world on fire, standing on his head, and then just that little delay can throw you right out of that rhythm, and that seems to kind of be what happened. But credit to Vegas. Vegas was unbelievable, just so hard to play against, but it was entertaining to watch, I think.
Yeah, I wish it would have gone longer, just because that series had such juice to it going in, and it was such a not bizarre is the wrong word, but it was off the wall. It was Vegas and Miami, essentially. That, which for the growth of hockey is exceptional, that was the two teams that were playing in the final. And you had two incredible stories with the Panthers being the last team in and then setting the world on fire, as you said, on the way to potentially winning a cup. And then you had Vegas, who I know I slept on them. And they were the number one team in the West, but I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't look at them. And even though they clearly were the best team in the
Yeah.
playoffs. Like, they really were. But for whatever reason, when I was at the beginning of the playoffs looking at the teams, one that I picked at the beginning of the season as my front runner, I thought the New York Rangers, if I had to pick a team, they seemed like the team that might have been the most ready for it. Was not correct, but I was looking at them out east a little bit. I was certainly looking at I was looking at Boston out east. It felt like east. It felt east.
That's where all the horses were.
Yeah, but maybe that was their doom, was they beat each other up on the way there. Clearly, as we talk about all the key injuries the Panthers had, it was such a war to get to that final. Not that it wasn't for Vegas. I mean, they beat some terrific teams on the way in. An Edmonton Oilers team I thought that sure had a great chance at maybe being a cup winner too. But it was a story of, like, I'm sure there has been in other Stanley Cup finals where one team got the bounces in terms of they were healthiest and they got to put out their best lineup night in, night out, and Florida did put out their lineup. But, I mean, yes, they lost Luosterainen as well. I thought he was a pretty good complementary player for them in that Carolina series specifically. And then the Tkachuk injury, Tkachuk's not 5 goals. It's not going to make the difference. But
that's a big heart and soul piece to lose in a big game. So it's, to me, you had said, like, I don't why people slept on Vegas, and I agree with you. I feel like people did, but when you look back on it, you like why? Why would you sleep on Vegas? If you had looked at like the preseason Stanley Cup odds, like Colorado was your favorite. Obviously ended up fizzling out because of injuries. But your next 2 highest favorites in the West, one of those was Vegas. They had the next best odds of any team not in the East. So like, why did we not expect that? Florida was another team who had extremely high odds going into the season, who nobody expected to, and they come in as the 8th seed, and they make it to the finals. You're like, well, we should have known about this because at the beginning of the season, everybody thought this is where they were going to be. So it's crazy how things shake out. But I guess fun to see a team like Vegas win. Only 6 years in existence, 2 trips to the finals. Once they win, they become kind of a mainstay. They do a great job, obviously, from an entertainment standpoint. That place is just buzzing nonstop. So that was cool to see. And then on the AHL side of things, you got another newcomer making an impact right away with Coachella Valley now up. I think at this point it's 2-1 in the Calder Cup finals.
As we record this podcast, they just last night. Well, it was almost a rout, and then they came flying back late and tied it. I think it was 4-1 at one point, I believe, and then they scored late in the game 3 times, tied it, and then Hershey found a way to win it in overtime. But pretty authoritative wins in the opening 2 games, considering you do not give up a goal. And I think it was 5-0, 4-0. I think those were the scores.
They were a lot. And you wonder, like, obviously that's a massive cross-country change, especially for a team like Hershey. And I guess you could say Coachella too. Hershey doesn't come out west. Coachella doesn't go out east, so that's different for them. It sounds like the environments in both places was outstanding as well. I mean,
I
over
can imagine. I can only speak
10,
to Coachella Valley, but
10,000, 11,000 people a night in both barns. That's something.
Yeah, those games when we were out there in March were electric. Friday, Saturday night, so it was juiced. And similarly to when you talk about Vegas and the show they put on, I was really impressed by what they did in Palm Springs and that game environment, and the fan base there was excellent. So, and the one thing I would bring up with Palm Springs and with the Firebirds is what I love about that team is they have that perfect blend of prospects and veterans. You're seeing Max McCormick, who's having a career year professionally, and he's leading the way. He's their captain. Your Andrew Podorowski, who actually got injured in that series against us in March,
came back,
and he's been giant for them. But then, and I'm going to allude to something Brett McLean, our new head coach, said in one of his press conferences, in the American Hockey League, you need the veterans. You need the McCormicks. You need the Podorowskis. For us last year, you need the Murmases. You need the Hicketts. You need these guys. But to win, you have to win with your prospects, and that's what Coachella Valley's doing. Jesper Froden, Riker Evans is having a sensational playoff. He's a high draft pick defenseman for them. Ty Cartier, who was the Rookie of the Year. These are all their prospects, and that's the meat of their team now. Yep. So that, looking at that through the Wild's lens and all the prospects that we supposedly have coming in now in this number 1 ranked prospect pool that the Minnesota Wild have, the ship, I think, would be sailing in a very good direction to try to follow that model that we've seen from Coachella Valley. And your core is your prospects. You sprinkle in the right veterans, and maybe you have a team that can make a deep run.
Yeah, and I think that kind of trickles ourselves into the last subject we really want to hit on in this intro is that veteran presence. And just last week we just announced that Michael Leary's coming back, which is a big piece for us for a number of reasons. One, for the veteran side of things, but from a center depth perspective, I mean, he was a guy who seems like anytime we needed to win a face-off last year, he was the guy who was out on the ice.
It was almost exclusively at times the guy that if they needed it, he was the guy, without question. And he is a complete driver in so many spaces of the game. I don't think anybody had any designs for him to be a power play guy, and by the end of the year, he was not only to win faceoffs, but some power plays you will see a faceoff guy come out, win the draw, and then they'll go to the bench. He was staying out there and he was contributing on the power play. So that's a big signing for a team that we all think is probably going to be on the younger side. And Mike O'Leary probably was signed last offseason. I'm definitely putting words in Mike Murray's mouth on this one a bit, but to be a depth player and to be a centerman and to win faceoffs, he's proven to be more than that. Had a career year in goals, a career year in assists, a career year in points. He's likely earned a nice bump in salary with that season he had last season, and he deserves it. And now, as this team gets younger and he gets a year older, he knows Des Moines, he knows the team, he knows how this place is run. He's going to be dependent on that much more to not only try to continue to contribute like he did with the offensive numbers he played in last year with winning faceoffs, but also helping to shepherd some of these younger players into pro hockey and continue to cultivate this young crop of players that we're all excited to see this season.
Yeah, it's nice to have, obviously, those familiar faces. You hope that history kind of can repeat himself, right? You hope that he has just as good of a year this coming year as he did in this past season. So we say it a lot. There's just a lot to be excited about, a lot to look forward to with what we're going to see on the ice this year. But yeah, expecting it to be prospect driven, and this probably won't be the only veteran we see come in over the next couple weeks, especially as we hit free agency.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not. We need a few of those guys.
Yeah.
But speaking of prospects and speaking of guys that had marvelous years, Daemon Hunt, and he jumped off the page early and often, and he just was constantly getting better. And he started the year, at least from my eyes, as somebody that I was blown away by. And then by about midway through the season, the secret was out, and Michael Russo, The Athletic, was tweeting about him. You were hearing his name come up in conversations. He ended up being a Black Ace call-up at the end of the season. I don't know if that was what Minnesota had in mind when he came in, but this was a 20-year-old who was playing against men. He was playing against top lines night in, night out. Yes, he was frequently paired with a veteran defenseman. He played a lot with Joe Hicketts last year, but this is a guy who carried his weight in gold for his rookie campaign. And I've always thought that some of the greatest leaps you're going to see from a player's development come between year one and year two, because year one, you're a little bit bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and it's new. Now he's coming back. He's got a full year under his belt, a really successful year under his belt, so he's going to have confidence. He knows that the organization's looking at him. He knows that he might be on the cusp of being that 7 or that 8th D up in Minnesota this year and realizing that dream, playing in that first NHL game. So he's going to be salivating about that opportunity, and that's only, to me, going to make that much more of a dangerous Daemon Hunt when he likely plays the lion's share of his games in Iowa this year.
We talked about things, and we were talking about Vegas, right? Things that shouldn't be a surprise. I would say he probably, coming into the season, I don't think anybody expected him to be like, this is going to be our top defensive prospect in the organization down in Iowa this past year. I don't think anybody thought that going into the year, just given all the depth that we had and whatnot. But
it almost felt like the door was open. Maybe it's Ryan O'Rourke, maybe it's Daemon Hunt, maybe it's Simon Johansson, but then he was the front runner to me.
But then also, you think about it, and it's like, well, yes, but he was coming in as a rookie, but he wasn't. He's played in the American Hockey League before, so he's got a leg up. He understands what it's going to take, and granted, it's not a full season, and you have to understand the ins and outs of it, and that being a pro life, but he knows the speed of the game. He knows those small things that you couldn't get away with, that you could get away with in juniors, you can't get away with in the American Hockey League. So looking back on it, you're like, oh, yeah, we should have seen this coming, but you never do. In hindsight, it's 2020, and that's life. So.
And on top of it all, a fascinating kid with the thrift store shopping he does, his social media account, the tattoos.
We're going to get
into it. So let's segue into that now. Now a second-year pro, Iowa Wild defenseman and draft pick of the Minnesota Wild defenseman, Daemon Hunt.
Period 2, presented by Explore Minnesota, our interview with Daemon Hunt. ExploreMinnesota.com is a source for your travel, ideas, events, and places to stay. Summer festivals, award-winning dining, tax-free shopping, and outdoor activities combine to create getaways that can only be found in Minnesota. Find endless ideas for the perfect summer getaway at ExploreMinnesota.com.
You're getting good at those.
I'm trying.
You're getting good at those.
Reading.
Minnesota, a place that our guest wants to get to eventually, full-time. Iowa Wild defenseman from last season and Minnesota Wild draft pick, and one heck of a rookie defenseman from last season for the Iowa Wild. Daemon Hunt is with us here today. Daemon, all the way from, let's see, you're in Calgary now. Brandon, Manitoba was where you were born, but in Calgary right now for the off-season, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm just up in Calgary right now. Just enjoying summer training and enjoying my time right now.
Well, we're looking forward to enjoying this time with you. Thanks for parking some time for us. Let's start with this one, as we have for all but one of our interviews, because I forgot, and Joey won't let me live it down. This is called Ridin' the Bus, and we like to put our listeners right on the bus like they'd be sitting on a bunk below you on the sleeper bus for the Iowa Wild. Daemon, what can you tell us from a great bus story? Doesn't have to be Iowa Wild related, could be from your time previously playing in the WHL, but what's a great bus story in the mind of Daemon Hunt?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of bus stories throughout my early career so far, but I think the one that stands out to me was this past season with Iowa. We decided to fit the entire team and staff all in one bus, and when we walked onto the bus, it was an old sleeper bus, and you can kind of like turn the chairs into beds. And so we tried to figure it out, and turns out there wasn't enough room for everyone. And us being the rookies up at the front, we drove to the I-80, and I ended up lying in the aisle. And so like there's a couple guys that were lying in the aisle, and then the coaching staff had to bring out some chairs from inside the rink, and they're sitting on chairs. And I think, Ben, you might have been doing that. I kind of forget, but and then once we got to the I-80, we stopped for some food, and we got a new bus. But 2 hours, 3 hours down the road, and we've got some guys lying in the aisle because there's not enough spots. So it's pretty funny to look back at now. Well,
little did I know that this podcast was going to cost me my job today, apparently.
Yeah.
Jeez. Throws me right under the bus, Huntsy.
I got to imagine you.
Yeah, literally.
I can imagine you guys just driving, getting to I-80, and somewhere at some point on that bus, somebody turned around to you and said, you got to figure this out and figure it out.
So
now.
Hold on here. So now it's my turn to share my side of this story.
No, we don't need that. We don't need that.
Moving on.
We can skip
that. That's screwed up. Way to go. No, incorrect. So that sleeper bus only fits, if we're really, really cramming it in there, we can probably go 24 players, 25 players maybe. We could go like a really thin roster. And then you have to include staff on there, which we travel with 11, but usually Shaky and his equipment assistant travel in the bus, or sorry, in the team equipment truck. So you're looking at 9. So they sent the wrong bus. Our bus company sent the wrong bus. And so when I was standing outside and I watched that bus roll in, my heart went into my throat, and I went, this is not good. Not to mention on that trip, we had the Minnesota Wild becoming Wild staff videographers down. So we had more than we'd normally have.
This was the GR trip.
So the wrong bus showed up. So I was calling everybody and their brother to try to find another bus.
They left that part out of the Becoming Wild.
Yeah, they did. They were kind to me on that one. So we rectified it. It was a major curveball. There were a lot of unhappy campers. I may have been the most unhappy, although I couldn't
life in the
show it,
AHL.
but
That whole segment was life in the AHL. This is life. Who cares about the games? Talk about this stuff. This is great.
Oh, thanks for that, Huntsy. I had blocked that one out of my memory from the season, but now I'm sitting here living in it again.
That's great.
Oh, very good, very good.
Yeah.
Hey, so I want to kick things off with you. Back in, it might have been November when you had the conversation with Alec, but we put out an article in December talking about, just you as a person off the ice. But one of the things you talked about, you said you were waiting for some very special delivery to come through the mail. You were waiting on a ring and a gold medal from Team Canada. Has that arrived yet? And if so, can we see it?
It has arrived, yes. The gold medal I have, and I got the ring in the mail about a month ago. It was just like a regular box that was sitting on our doorstep, and we're like, well, I get a lot of packages come in, so like I don't know what it is. So we open it up, and it's this huge ring. It's very beautiful, and it's an awesome ring. I can definitely show you guys. It's just downstairs right now in a nice little box they got with me too. So, but yeah, it's very, very special.
We'll have him send some pictures after,
Yep.
and then we can have Marquise throw those up
Yeah.
over the top of the YouTube video. I'd love to see them.
Yeah.
My initial question for you, Damon, what a year for you to form who you are, not only as a player and as a person, and we want to get to both over the next few minutes here that we chat. But who are you now that maybe you weren't before the start of your first pro season? Who is Daemon Hunt now that Daemon Hunt wasn't at the beginning of your first pro season, beginning of 22-23? What have you learned?
Oh, well, I think I've just matured that much more. It's crazy how fast playing one pro year you can develop, not as a player, but as a person, just maturing. Obviously, I'm just out of my teenage years. I just turned 21, but I think just kind of looking at the older guys and becoming a pro, that was really big for me. And I think just coming into next year, it's just going to be that much, not necessarily easier, but I've had that experience now. So it'll be a good test for me at training camp coming up here in Minnesota. But I think just that maturity part of both sides of the game.
Guys talk about having to learn how to cook for themselves, to learn how to do laundry for themselves, these mundane things that adults have to learn, and it's difficult at times for players that have had billet families through the 18 to 19 years. Was there anything that jumped out to you living on your own where you went, boy, I don't know, I have no clue how to do this, or I needed to learn how to do this when you first walked into life on your own as a pro?
There's definitely some things. I was pretty spoiled in junior hockey with my billet family. They were great. They did a lot of things for me, but I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is just cooking. Obviously laundry. Just growing up, my mom spoiled me too, but I know how to do laundry. But I think cooking, you got to be in the mood, and if it's getting late and you don't want to cook up a meal, it's a little bit frustrating at times. But I don't know. My mom got me some nice cookbooks with some healthy meals, but I mean, some days it was tough just to get up and actually cook myself some food. But it wasn't too bad. But besides that, I think it was pretty good. I handled myself pretty well.
I feel like I always ask this question when guys start bringing up their cooking and whatnot.
I knew you were going here.
Yeah,
I was going to ask it then. I'm like, well, then I would be stealing Joey's question.
Yeah, it always comes up. But do you have something that it seems like you're still learning and finding your way around in the kitchen and whatnot. Is there something that you feel like you could call like a staple, like a Daemon Hunt staple in the kitchen?
Yeah, a staple for me is either chicken and steak with rice, and
both.
Either broccoli or salad. So it's pretty standard, but I mean, it gets the job done.
Wait, chicken and steak, like the same meal, chicken and steak?
No, either one. Depends what I'm feeling.
Is there something you found in those cookbooks that your mom got you that's like, I need to learn how to make this. This is on my to-do list.
No, really not gonna lie, I didn't really touch it that much.
I hope your mom's not
But,
watching. Jeez. Thanks for the gift, Mom. I have not looked at it once. That's great.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just I definitely cook some stuff out of there, but it's kind of hard to get all like the ingredients and stuff, so I just kind of wing it sometimes.
All right. I like it. So I think one of the pieces that we definitely want to talk about, and I know we touched on it in that article back when, but I want to talk about your style and kind of how that all came to be, because I think it's you got your own style. It's a unique style. So like you're big on going to thrift shops and finding stuff like that. It's like where did this all come from? Where did that kind of originate?
You know, I'm not too sure. When I was younger, I was kind of always into fashion, and obviously not having a job and not making money when you're young, it was tough. So once I started making my own money, and I just kind of got into it, and I think a lot of social media, it definitely influenced me a lot. But I mean, yeah, going to thrift shops is always fun, just to kind of look through things and find like a hidden gem or whatever. But yeah, I'd say just any genre within like the streetwear, and coming to the rink every morning, getting chirped is always a good start to the morning. But you just can't take it personally. You just gotta kind of rock it and just kind of do your own thing.
Is there like, I don't know, what's one of the best that you can share? What's one of the best chirps you heard coming into the rink
And
one day for
who
practice?
gave it to you?
Yeah.
Oh geez, there's been quite a bit. Turner on Bright always gives me a hard time. He always asks like, whoa, stop. What are you wearing? What is this? And I have to like explain it to him, and he's like, all right, go on. But yeah, like there's been so many guys that just kind of like, what are you doing, man?
I could just hear,
But,
I can hear Otter. Just, whoa.
Exactly.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Before you go anywhere.
That was a great Otter impression,
Yeah, that was good.
actually. I remember that one of the first times I met you, Damon, and it would have been at development camp, I believe. You had that great Led Zeppelin shirt on that you love wearing. And I'm a huge Led Zeppelin guy, so I was like, no way. Like, this 18-year-old kid's a big Led Zeppelin guy. And I remember going up to him and saying, oh, it's awesome. Like, Led Zeppelin, like, what are some of your favorite songs? And he's like, oh, I just like the way the shirt looks.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, there's egg all over my face on that one. If there was going to be a fire in your closet and you knew it was coming and you had to pull 3 of these thrift store purchases out, what would those 3 things be?
You know what, that Zed shirt might be up there. I've got a nice old Tommy Hilfiger hoodie. I pull it out once in a while, but that Led Zeppelin, that Tommy Hilfiger, and I found a nice pair of Carhartt pants. They're brown.
That's awesome.
I've been wearing them a lot. Yeah, probably those ones. It's tough though. Like I got so much stuff. It's hard to pick from.
I feel like that's everybody with their closet. I don't know if I'd have
My
a
wife
couple
gives me so
things,
much
too.
grief. I have way more clothes than she does, and she never lets me hear the end of that.
Yeah, it's tricky. Is that something for you that, like, obviously hockey's your kind of profession, but like, could you see yourself someday as like a side kind of passion project thing, like trying to have your own line of clothing, designing clothes?
Henrik
Like,
Lundqvist.
yeah, we talked about Henrik.
Yep.
Henrik does that kind of stuff. Like, is that something you could see yourself doing, but maybe more in line with like the streetwear style that you really like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think once hockey's done and I'm done with the game, I think just trying to be an entrepreneur and getting into the fashion would be really fun. Obviously, that's down the road and things can change, but it's funny you bring that up. I am actually trying to start a line right now, just with the t-shirts and hoodies. It's called 52. I can throw you guys some pictures later, but I'm born in the 5th month of 02. That's my hockey number. So then it's 50, then the number 2. And I'm got my manufacturers lined up, and so it's kind of like a work in progress right now, and it's been really fun, but I'm sure you guys have more questions about it.
Yeah, that's
That's awesome.
that's unbelievable.
Also, you're talking to the right guy. Like,
yeah,
this is the guy that's going to get behind this. Yeah.
I don't know if you could. My mind started just running with
Yeah.
it. A couple things come to mind. One, we should connect you with Kelsey, our merchandise manager, to get some of the stuff in the store when it's ready. Two, we should have you help design just like a quick line of T-shirts at some point for the season for fans to buy. I think that'd be awesome to do. So that's just know that's coming down the pipe at some point if you're interested in it.
All right.
And we'll get that set up and off and running. I'm sure Kelsey would love that.
That sounds electric.
Yeah, you've got another piece in that article that we talked about. You talked about being a big fan of art and having that kind of be a kind of motivation for where some of this stuff kind of comes from. Do you like consider yourself to be an artistic person? Like, can you draw? Are you skilled in the arts, or you're just kind of a fan of that stuff?
I mean, I'm a little bit talented with drawing and just the overall general art. I mean, I took all the art classes in high school, so I mean, I definitely have a little bit of experience with it, but not a ton. I mean, I used to draw a lot as a kid, but obviously now it's I'm not just going to draw that. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely into the modern like paintings and stuff like that, and just kind of seeing what other people are doing throughout the whole art community. And I mean, there's a lot to go through. There's so many different types of paintings and drawings, so it's kind of hard to narrow it down. But yeah, I definitely enjoy it.
So if we pop through like your apartment during the season, will we see works of art on the wall? Is it like that, or you're not at that point yet?
Maybe. I mean, it's kind of tough to get a lot of art into like a non-permanent house where it's just my apartment, but yeah, there definitely might be some pieces up on the wall. We'll see.
It would be hilarious to just send Marquise to these guys' apartments and see how bare bones these things are.
I'm telling you, we should just Cribs. Just do an episode of Cribs.
But they'd all look the same. It would
they
just be
kinda
like
would.
a bed and a kitchen, and some would be missing very key appliances that you need to live and exist.
We did that in San Jose once. We did a Cribs episode. And it was this 4 French-Canadian guys all living in a house together, and all their rooms were like, it's a mattress on the floor, no box spring, and it was just you're just living. It looked like it was just like a college dorm room.
Yeah. Have you gotten any new tattoos since the last time that we've seen you?
Oh, jeez.
Look at him. The answer is yes.
Yeah,
the answer is yes.
Yeah. I've gotten one. It's on my right tricep. So.
Well,
yeah,
you're gonna have
to explain a little bit more. What is it? I mean, what are we doing here?
Okay, next question.
Yeah, thanks. Great, cool, awesome.
Yeah. It's called a conscious energy grid. It's pretty weird if you ask me, but I really like the design of it, and pretty much it means like everything that you experience in life is just kind of like mental. So it's kind of like mental toughness and stuff, but it's pretty complex. So if you were to Google it, it's probably not what it means, but
I'm
I
doing
kind
it
of summarized it down to like
it's like this with
like
the skull, the brain, or the head. Is that
Why
right?
he's just going to
Like
show it
that.
to us.
Oh yeah.
There it is.
yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. So it's like a head, and there's a bunch of like lines going around it, but yeah.
How many is that now? Was that 17, 16? I know we did the feature on you during the season. I forget what the number was.
I think it's 17
I was
now.
going to say 17.
Yeah.
Man, look at me with that number. 16. Pulled that out.
Yeah, wow.
Impressive.
That's impressive.
Really impressive. If money was no object for you, which hopefully someday it's not, you continue with this hockey career of yours, nice long NHL career, the 52 brand takes off. Is there a tattoo that you'd like? If you could just like drop any amount of money on a tattoo, do you have an idea in mind of what you do with that? Like to get just the ultimate tattoo? Is there an ultimate tattoo for you, or is it kind of you just as you go you come up with things and then you grab some more ink?
It's your face on his back, like Steve-O.
That'd be alarming.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I just kind of like go with the flow when it comes to tattoos. Like they'll come to me and I have to think about it, and I'm like, all right, yeah, let's get it done. But maybe like a really big back piece. There's a lot of space on the back, so I mean, to get a really big nice piece done in who knows, fly to wherever and get it done by a famous artist would be pretty special. But
It's never too late to
I
get.
don't know. I just kind of go. Yeah.
It's never too late to get the Ridin the Bus logo with him on it on
Yeah.
his back.
Yeah, we
It's
can
never,
get
it's
that
never,
to
It's
you.
never too late. We can get that to you.
we
We
can
know
do that.
we know a graphic
Yeah,
designer.
we
who
know
can
the
get
guy.
that to you. You talked about the mental toughness side, and I do want to talk some hockey, even though we could spend 45 minutes talking to just Daemon Hunt, the artist, the tattoo fanatic, the clothing designer. One thing that just blew me away this year, Damon, with you, 20 years old, playing heavy minutes in the American Hockey League and playing against top lines. What did you learn about yourself as a player this year? Because you were a little bit thrown into the fire, and boy, did you learn how to swim through those flames.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of ups and downs this year. Again, just learning from my mistakes throughout the year. I know I'm not going to be perfect, and everyone makes mistakes out there. And as the year progressed, I found I just got better. And it's crazy how fast you get comfortable with a game. And yeah, I just kind of came to the rink every day with the right attitude and just worked as hard as I could. And yeah, I guess you could say I did get thrown into the fire a bit, playing big minutes against top lines and learning to shut them down. And I found my way onto the power play at the end of the year, and then I was killing penalties as well. And yeah, it was definitely a big learning experience for me. But yeah, and then I got sick in February, which was really tough. I couldn't even get out of my bed for the first week. It was just brutal. And then I kind of came back. I think I personally thought I came back a little bit too soon. The sickness hit me pretty hard, and then from there it kind of took off, and then things ramped up, and then playoffs hit. And I thought I played really, really solid in those last two games against Texas. And then in the playoffs against Rockford, obviously didn't go our way, but 2 overtime losses, kind of a coin flip in overtime. And
Yeah,
I thought I played really well. And yeah, just an unfortunate ending. I thought we could have won, but personally, I thought the year went really well. A lot of ups and downs, and I just played as hard as I could and took advantage of the coaching and just went out there and played my game.
Speaking of coaching, and he may or may not have gotten to this yet, but Brett McLean, the new head coach of the Iowa Wild, has he reached out yet? Have you had any conversations with him yet? It's been relatively recent, so if he hasn't, I hope nobody goes, well, why isn't he calling his players? But have you talked to Brett at all yet about? I'm sure it'd be pretty preliminary talks, but have you talked to him at all since the naming?
I haven't. No, I haven't got a chance to reach out to him, but yeah, I'm excited for him. A little bit of a fresh start here for everyone, and I got to be with him a little bit when I was up in Mini for some preseason games, and then black acing a little bit. I didn't see him a bunch, but yeah, seems like a great dude, and I'm really excited.
Expectations for year 2, what are they for you in terms of what heights can you see yourself climbing to in year 2 with the Wild organization?
My expectations for myself clearly is to make the Minnesota Wild this upcoming season. It's definitely possible. I just have to believe myself and train hard every single day. And once I get to camp, just compete, and the rest will take care of itself. But whether if that comes this season or the season after or whenever, I do truly believe myself that I can make that team this upcoming season.
No, having that in mind and putting in all the work in the offseason, what does the normal day in the offseason look like for you when it's let's say it's full with training and stuff like that? What's that day look like?
Yeah, it's Monday to Saturday in the gym for about 2 hours a day. Crash Conditioning is my gym. It's just a hockey gym, and it's a great atmosphere in there. It's awesome. But I'm skating 2 times a week right now. I'm not touching the ice too much. I don't really like to skate too early in the summer. I just don't have time myself for the season coming up. And then once later on in the season, things ramp up, then you kind of skate more. But they're hard workouts. They're intense, and it's a great atmosphere in there. But it's not much of an off season or summer when you're training like this every single day. But it's my job, and I love it.
Have you had a moment? I want to go back to what you said before that. I think about we're all chasing something here, right? And I'm chasing something, and you're chasing something, and Joey's chasing something. But what you just said so well. I believe that I can make the Minnesota Wild next season, and damn rights you can. Have you had a second to think about how cool it is that you can say that with such confidence in your hockey career? I mean, come on, like that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. It's almost there. It's right there. I just got to do a little bit more, and I definitely could crack that squad someday. But it's very special to say, Ben. It's humbling. It's awesome to one day possibly play for the Minnesota Wild. Yeah.
One of the things down, obviously, we are all on board with that. We hope you make the big club and whatnot.
100%.
If there, and I think parts of the ebbs and flows of having a young career, there's probably going to be times where you do spend some time down here still. And I think coming into this season, we're going to have, I mean, we had a really young team last year. We got an even younger team this year. A lot of young, prospects coming in on the blue line as well. And it's obviously it's going to be a competitive night in, night out, similar to how it was this year. But we talked about this a little bit, like an odd, strange way. You're almost a veteran, given the fact that we have so many young guys coming in. You've got this full year of experience. You played part of the COVID season here too. So how are you? What's the approach you're taking, and how are you gonna help some of these younger guys adjust to the pro game, kind of how people helped you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's for sure a competitive environment because we're all a team, but at the same time, everybody wants to, overplay the other guy, and everyone wants to make the NHL. But at the same time, you have to have that good team mentality, and sometimes it can be tricky for sure. And it's only my second year pro, and but at the same time, I've got that year under my belt, and I may be one of the technically older guys in the room with all the younger guys coming in, but I think you just really have to be supportive. You really have to push each other in a healthy way to get each other better. But it'll be an interesting year for sure. And again, there's going to be lots of ups and downs, but I think you just have to stay positive and stick to the ways that the coaches are teaching us, and just enjoy it too. And everything will take care of itself.
You alluded to this late in the season. We had a pregame interview at one point, you and I, Damon, and so I'd imagine I know the answer, but let's get an even longer-winded answer on it. Is offensive contribution an expectation for you next season? Because you showed us the shutdown. You showed us the minute eater, the first pass, the heavy minutes, the heavy play. You showed that. Is chipping in offensively on a more consistent basis, is that a part of your plan for year two as well?
Absolutely it is, yeah. I'm not going to lie, I was not that happy offensively for myself this past season, but again, rookie season, it's just kind of feeling it out and getting used to the hockey, and now I know what it's all about, and just kind of being part of the offense more. And it's not easy to produce points in the AHL. It really isn't. So just trying to find my way offensively a bit more this upcoming season would be really nice.
You talked about the off season, and when you're working out constantly, it's not much of a summer, not a ton of downtime. But are you getting some downtime to at least be able to take some trips and have some time to decompress, or maybe you've already done that?
Be a 21-year-old
Yeah,
guy.
like are you going anywhere exciting coming up, or have you gone anywhere exciting?
I went to Mexico City for a week.
Oh, wow.
That was a nice little trip.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was really nice down there. Probably wouldn't go again because there was no ocean, and I really want an ocean. But the city was really nice, and for the rest of the summer, I think it's just golfing around here, hanging out with my buddies. I'm gonna go to Kelowna with my family later in July. But for those that don't know, Kelowna is it's like a lake town. It's very beautiful. It's an awesome place to be. But Nick Batan lives there actually. But besides that, not too much going on here.
I have been to Kelowna. It is beautiful.
That's what I
It's a
hear.
Gorgeous,
I've
gorgeous
talked
place.
to a lot of players who are
Yeah.
either from there, or, like you go to visit there, and it's just great things.
Magnificent, magnificent. How's your golf game?
Yeah. Oh, it's okay.
Have you broken any more putters recently?
No, no, I've got a new one, and it's my baby now. I'm taking care of it.
Yeah.
Good.
But ups and downs, obviously, with the golf game. But I hit 89, which is nice the other day, so I'm happy with that.
I'm still trying to break 90.
You're working
soon.
on it.
We're getting
You're
there.
working on
Someday soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of that I was referencing the putter issue. We had that interview that Jesper did with you so elegantly up with the Black Aces. But one of the things you mentioned is your celebrity crush was Angelina Jolie. Do you have like a favorite Angelina Jolie movie that comes to mind when you're like, yep, she's the one?
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
That seems like a front runner. If you were to pick like
It's a good movie.
Yeah, quintessential Angelina Jolie, that would come to mind for me as well.
Yeah, it's a great flick. I like that.
I don't think I've ever
There-
seen it start
there's
to
so
finish.
many.
I recommend it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good show, but there's so many with her. It's hard to pick, right?
Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider.
That's early.
Wanted. She was in Want, right?
Oh yeah, the
Wanted.
Ben the Bullet,
Yeah.
Ben the Bullet movie.
Yeah.
I only have two final questions for you, Hansi, and I want you to have some fun with these. You're a style guru as much as Turner Ottenbright may say you're not. If you had to say of guys coming back, best style, worst style, who you got? And you can't say yourself.
What?
Cut it. Clip. That's your teaser. What?
What?
Best style, probably Petey, Nick Batan.
Yeah.
He's got some good style. Worst style, it's pretty obvious. Do I want to say it?
Yep.
Turner Ottenbright. There you go.
Tough.
What's the worst thing you've seen Turner Ottenbright wear?
I don't even know. Everything.
And is this a genuine Otter's got the worst style, or is this guy gave me so much flack nonstop that I just had to give it back to him?
It's a bit of both, because he rips me for the clothes I wear, but then he walks into the rink and it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, but I'm not gonna say anything because I'm the young guy and I gotta respect him. So
He's above that.
Take
and I
the
don't
high
wanna say
road.
anything that,
Take the
yeah,
high road.
Yeah, and I don't want to say anything to Otter, or else he'll just turn around and give it to me.
Respected.
So.
He'll come marching over from Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My,
He'll come marching.
My last question, you may not want to reveal some of your favorite spots, but is there, having been here for a year now, have you found any nice little, small boutiques, thrift shops, anything that you really like in the Des Moines area that you want to reveal your sources, or are there some you want to probably keep closer to the vest so nobody takes them over?
No, I'm not gonna gatekeep anything here. There's a place over in East Village. It's actually weird. I found it. I think Adam Beckman actually gave it to me, but it's in a basement and there's like no signs. It's perfect, but I forget what it's called, and I'm not. Yeah,
Purposeful forgetting.
I forget what it's
I'm
called.
not gonna
I'm
gatekeep.
not
But
going
it's-
to gatekeep. I
Yeah,
don't
there
know
you
the
go.
name of
There
it.
you go. But it's a great little spot. It's over in East Village. And then besides that, I mean, nothing crazy. I pretty much get everything online if I was to buy any clothes, kind of. But yeah.
We'll try to squeeze that out. Bex is our next guest, so we'll try to squeeze that out of him when we have him on in a couple weeks. We'll see
Yeah.
if we can't. We'll see.
Yeah,
if we
there you
can't
go.
get it out
Yeah.
of Adam. Huntsy, did we get to did we miss anything? Anything else you want to add before we wrap this up? This has been just terrific. We've really had a blast.
Awesome. Just one. Ben, how was your vacation? Where'd you go?
Thanks for asking, Damon. You should almost lead into why you wanted to ask about that, because I know this has to do with me texting the group about something else and saying I'm gone on vacation, and then Petey responding with, "Hey Ben, have a great vacation," in the group chat about a month ago.
There you go. Glad you caught on.
Yeah. No, we had a nice trip. Atlanta to see one of my best friends from high school and his wife and kids, and then we went to Savannah in Georgia and had a very, very nice trip, my wife and I. It was great. So thank you for asking. We had a lovely time.
Yeah.
Ate some great food, got to the beach, saw a lot of Civil War and Revolutionary War sites, which is big for me. So it was very nice. I would recommend Savannah. It was a wonderful place.
All right.
Awesome.
Huntsy, this has been just terrific, buddy. Thanks so much for coming on, and we'll look forward to watching the progression of Daemon Hunt, the hockey player, and the fashionista, and the evolution of 52, right? 52.
52.
We're gonna be
there you
seeing
go.
we're gonna be seeing more 52. The wheels are spinning over there for you.
That's gonna happen.
Awesome.
Be on the lookout.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
A big thanks to Daemon Hunt for parking some time for us here today and for sharing so much. And really, as we talked about and as we teased, just such a fascinating guy. And he's going to be someone that is really entertaining to watch his career play out, not only as the player, but as the person, especially in a time as we got to a little bit in that chat. Now more than ever, you're seeing the NHL and you're seeing players start to realize the power of their brand.
Mm-hmm.
And he's almost a part of that first generation of players that's how it's always been. Some of the older players, you think about like a PK Subban, who's really made or even a Henrik Lundqvist, you could say, with his clothing line. You've seen them brand out and utilize their names in such a way, but they had to learn that. Daemon Hunt is a part of the class.
Natural.
It's natural, and social media has always existed in Daemon Hunt's life, and the ability to have a voice throughout the entire international scope through social media, et cetera. That's always been around for him. So I'm excited to, I've waxed on about what I think about him as the player, but almost right there with it for me is what's he going to do with who he is as a person? That's a really interesting one for me, and where he's going to play that out, because I think he's someone that is just so interesting on so many different levels.
Yeah, along that same line, I just think and maybe he's kind of by nature, but he is kind of a quieter person, but hopefully it's someone we can kind of break out of his shell a little bit more. I think we saw some of that, we definitely saw that with Jesper, especially when he took over up and with the Black Aces and put the microphone in his hand. But we saw
Gunning for my job.
But we saw some of that come out when he was talking with Daemon. So hopefully we can bring more of that out. And guys are year twos, obviously, like you said, you see big jumps, but they're just more comfortable in general. So the hope is that we can see some more of that come out, because the personalities, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest question that fans always have. What's everybody like? Everybody sees them on the ice. It's the off the ice stuff that everybody wants to know more about. So it'll be interesting to see how he opens up in that way as well.
And like you brought up, he's all of a sudden going to be the guy that other defensemen are looking to.
Yeah, which is
right.
it's
As a 21-year-old
wild thing to think about, and a 21-year-old, like a year and a quarter of a year's experience under his belt. But yeah, he's, for better or worse, a vet at this point, given the youth in our group, especially on the blue line.
So the spotlight there on Daemon Hunt. And speaking of spotlights, one idea that you had during the season for our off-season portion of Riding the Bus was...
Which I'm glad you brought up, because I would have forgotten about it.
That's what we're here to do.
Yep.
The amount of
Just
times
support each other.
The amount of times you've reminded me of something that I forget about. Whew. That's why my phone is always full of just multiple alarms going off throughout the course of the day. It drives my wife nuts. Staff spotlights and helping our fans get to know, not from we're not going to have them be our guests on the show, but 5-10 minutes here, 5-10 minutes there with some of our staff and helping to introduce them to our fan base, because I think not necessarily for all the fans, but for a lot of fans and people that come to this building, and you could even say this about the players too, not most people don't know all that goes into this place.
Yep.
And we're blessed with a very big staff compared to a lot of American League teams. So there's a lot of people that have a lot of different responsibilities, and they throw that into the cauldron and you stir it around, and then you play it out on the ice, and you see what happens, which is a riveting, top-notch professional feel to a gamesmanship, to the show, to the ticket venues, to being a season ticket holder. So there are stories, there are people, there are personalities that we think we have a platform here to showcase that. It was a great idea. I signed right off on it, and so we'll start moving that in here throughout the course of the offseason as well.
Yeah, it'll be just, I think a lot of our fans have become familiar with members of the staff, especially on the ticket side. They're people they interact with constantly, but there's probably a lot of people in our front office who people don't know as much about. And similar to guys we talk to on the podcast who all have their journeys through hockey and how they got to where they are, everybody in our office has a similar, not similar in that sense, but they've got like a story on how they got in the position they're in. Everybody's got a different background. My journey to work in sports is completely different than what someone else's journey might be. So it'll be cool to dive into that and just get to know people a little bit more on just, what makes you tick, what are some of the things you enjoy doing, and, what do you do on a day-to-day basis. I think that's a big one too for fans, not, like you said, not knowing the full scope. I think a lot of people see game days and that's kind of your vision of what goes on, but I get questions constantly. What's the offseason like for you? What are you working on when there's not games? So like that's a thing I think people have some curiosity about. So it'll be cool to tap into that with some of these people.
That is a great question, and it's so true. I get so many questions. The season's done, and they're like, so you just
go home, right? You're done? And it's like, I wish that was the case, but no.
Okay, see you guys in October. That sounds great.
Yeah.
It's so true. How do you answer that? Because for me, there's the Cliff Notes version. Depends on who I'm talking with. Mm-hmm. But for example, last weekend had a guys' weekend with a lot of friends, guys that I played college hockey with that I've known for a while. So they're going to get the longer version.
Yeah.
Not that you have to give either or, but what's your typical response for that in what your off season looks like?
Yeah. I say, no, I don't get to go home. I get to go home. I have vacation time and stuff like that. There's
only one time to use it, and it's during the off-season.
The off-season is nice because it is a time where what I tell people, it's a time where you can decompress and you can take that PTO and take that time off because the season is such a grind. The biggest thing about the off-season is it's still very busy. It's just busy in a completely different way. You're not working towards games and you're not losing hours during the week because you got a game in the middle of in the middle of it. It's we're in full, like the season ended, we started preparations for the 23-24 season. What felt like instantly, we might have taken a couple weeks off, but been actively working to try and get us ahead on some of that stuff. So it doesn't feel like when we get into late July and August that we're scrambling
but it inevitably will, no matter how. Isn't that weird how that works that way?
There's certain aspects that do, but for the most part, we should be able to get ahead of it. I think we're well ahead in some of our planning than we have been in the past. We had some good ideas, and at some point you get to a point in the off season where you're just waiting because you can only do so much before the schedule comes out. And then once the schedule comes out, that's when you can start plugging and placing the rest of your promotions and giveaways and things like that. But we've got some of our ideas. We know some of the things we kind of want to do on a giveaway front. So you start getting some quotes, get some numbers. A lot of the off season is budgeting and preparing for what that's going to look like for the next season. On my end, I'm working with our media partners and trying to find more media partners to work with. So there's always something happening. It's busy. It's just in a different way. It's a more normal 9 to 5 than it is during the season. So I think that's the biggest thing that I tell people. Probably not that long-winded, but.
And there's ebbs and flows to it. I think that's the one thing with the season is the season starts, you put your foot on the floor, and then
it goes, doesn't stop.
Yeah, where in the off season, I always describe it. May is there's always the initial dismount where you got to get your ducks in a row. You have to recap the season a little bit.
Yeah.
What went right? What do you want to do better? And then
I have there's like milestone markers, I feel like, throughout the offseason.
that's a great way to put it.
At the beginning, it's like it's your decompression point.
Post-mortem.
Wrap up the season, go over things, what went well, what didn't go well, what do we want to change, what do we want to adjust. And then you hit that, that June period where it's like, I think June is when it's really at its slowest.
Yeah, it's a lull. It's a lull.
There's preparation and planning there, but that's when I think it's at the most standstill point in the off season. Then you get July, and your benchmark there is you get development camp, which is right after the draft, which flows into the schedule coming out at some point in July, hopefully.
And
it
free
might be
agency.
August. And free agency.
Yep.
So like that's a marker in itself.
Yeah, that month goes quick. That month goes
You get
fast.
through, the schedule comes out. That's like the big thing that we work for in July. And then you get into August, and here, your benchmark is then, your state fair. We start talking, when do we want to release promo schedules, single game tickets, and those things. You get through that in August, then you're at your prospect camp and showcase.
It's over then.
And then
it's done.
But the minute you hit that, it rolls into camp, and that's like the season started. So that's like your last hurdle. Prospect camp is the last hurdle.
I kind of don't even like talking about it right now in June. I still have to enjoy my summer, Joey.
You get to the prospect camp, and then once prospect camp is done, that's when it rolls into the regular camp, and that one I feel like is when the season starts officially. Prospect camp to me still feels like summer. I know it's like work, but camp is like we're here and it's officially the season ready to go. So those are kind of the markers that I look towards from like the working standpoint.
Yep, I think you nailed it. I think it's post-mortem of the season, start planning for the next season, and then you begin executing on the next season. That's the most generic way I describe it to people is the end of the year, then you start planning, and then you start executing. Because if you don't, you're in trouble in September.
Yep. And
you're in really big trouble.
I've scrambled before here and other jobs. And it's nice to have your footing and not have to do that.
Because there's always something that you couldn't plan for that comes up.
Every single time.
So you have to give yourself the space and the time to execute on that. And if you don't, you're going to be going, why did I not get this thing done that I'm working on now?
You'll thank yourself later if you do
that day in June where you wanted to go, I don't need to stay till 5.
Yeah.
You're going to be happy you did when you stayed and got that one thing done, and then you check it off the list for that unforeseen thing that's lurking out there right now in the universe that's going to hit you and me and both of us at some point.
Just waiting
in September.
Waiting
who knows what that's going to be?
For the right moment.
Makes me shudder.
Yeah.
Getting towards the end of our podcast here. What do we want to get to before we officially put a pin in episode 19, almost to episode 20? How about that, Joey?
Well, episode 20 should be a good one.
Yes, it should be.
We got a guest who's coming on board the bus who...
I got a lot of questions. And a lot of them are based off of what other people have said,
I've got
about this
so
guy.
many questions. And this is one where, like, we're going to have to... I need to know well in advance what's the day that we're recording, going to shoot this, because I need to do, like, my thorough research, because this is someone who... everybody has talked about when we've had them on as a guest. Probably one of the more boisterous personalities we have. It's Adam Beckman. So we're going to bring him on the bus. And I mean, this is one we try to stick most of our interviews is like 30, 45 minutes. I don't know how long
I
this
really
is
hope
going
we
to go.
go for a really long time.
And if it
with
goes
him.
for a long time, then you're going to get 2 parts. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. But I'm very excited to talk to him. I can't believe it's taken us this long to get him on the podcast. But it should be a good one.
Adam is such an interesting one to me, and I'm so excited to see how it's going to play out, because when he first got here, the one thing I've learned very quickly is there's the Jesper Wallsteds who just are naturally inclined to be good on camera for whatever reason. They're just built that way. Dakota Mermis, although I didn't know him when he was young, but he's extremely personable, well-spoken. The Adam Beckman that all of these players, the stories they tell, early on, he clammed up is maybe too strong of a word, but he would suppress all of that.
Yeah.
And he would get very kind of pucks and deep-ish, if that makes sense to our listeners. where this year I remember there was a point in Milwaukee where I did an interview with him, and we got done, and I said, you have gotten so much better at this in the last year and change of you and I sitting and doing these things, where you're giving us actual something we can sink our teeth into and not just going through the motions. And so I hope we can, and this will be our responsibility. This is not Adam's. This is you. This is you and I. Yeah,
we'll bring it out of him.
It is our responsibility to get that Adam Beckman on, and if we do our jobs, I think our fans are in for a wonderful episode.
And we'll know exactly when it happens because like I've seen him interact in both ways. I've seen him interact where he's more reserved, a little bit quieter, and polished isn't the word, but more like buttoned up.
Sure.
But I've also seen like the loose and fun side, and you'll know it's hard. Like there's like a look almost that you can see come across his face, but like, and Marquise is nodding his head. He knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You can, you know when you've gotten that, and we'll be sure to bring that out. I would have no doubts about that.
So we have our work cut out for us with our next episode coming up here in a few weeks. But that's it for episode 19. A big thank you to Jeremy Core and Executive Podcast Solutions, to Marquise Jones for editing this monstrosity together, and my partner Joey Goldstein. For all of us here at the Iowa Wild, and for all of us that made this possible, I'm Ben Gislason. He's Joey Goldstein. And as always,
Two honks for the win. Thanks, Explore Minnesota.